on, everyone? This is Antidude. Today is going to be a GBStudio tutorial type of video. So what we're going to do today is attempt to recreate the coding for my game, which is called General Warfare. That's available on itch. I'll put the link down in the description. So anyway, what we're going to do today is attempt to recreate the coding for that game. We're going to start from a totally blank GBStudio project. So this is going to be kind of a casual tutorial, nothing too polished. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. So I have a totally blank GBStudio file here, and what I'm going to do right now is show you what assets I've imported. So really easy to do that by clicking the plus button there and adding a scene. So the game, if you have not played it yet, is basically according to the card game of war. So the scene that the player will see is basically just two hands, and each time that they press A, the cards will and the values will regenerate themselves. So each card has three values. The first one is combat power. The second one is a rank, a military rank, and the third one is an attack class. So that's like air, land, sea, space. So just the general premise of the game really quickly is that it's just like war. The higher number will win. However, we've added in some smaller mini games and chances for the player to redeem themselves if they lose. So if the ranks match up in General Warfare, you'll go to like a first-person shooter scene on Game Boy, so it's kind of interesting. We won't go through that today, but we'll still program to show the text so we can proof our coding here. And then if the attack class match, the mini game is basically like a radar where the player will attempt to strike the enemy without knowing their location and try to win back some points, try to salvage their loss. It's kind of like a double or nothing type of game. So if the cards match, the player will go into a side-scrolling war with the other general. So we got 4 generals. Each one represents a branch: Army, Navy, Air Force, and Space Force. So if the cards match, you'll go into a war, and if you win the war, you move on. So the one other way to win is if you get 14 wins up here in the top row. If you get to 14 wins, you get to move on. So pretty basic, but we're going to be using a lot of tile switching and scripting to make it seem like the players are flipping over cards as they play. So this is the background scene that I made in Sprite. Very basic. The player's hand is here while the opponent's hand is here. So this is just the basic scene. So the first thing I'm going to do is add 2 actors to this. One is going to be the friendly plane, just to give the scene a little bit of motion. So this scene is for the Air Force general. So you have some meters and dials in the background, and this plane will do a little motion once you start up the game. So the second one's going to be this A button, because I just want the player to know to press A, continuously pressing A, so they can have iterations and hands within the game here. So those are the 2 sprites. The nice thing about GBStudio is you can emulate right in the program. So what I'm going to do now is use this arrow to emulate. So the first time it boots up takes a while, so we'll go ahead and do that now. Alright, so we can see it works, which is great. the plane's got the little miniguns going, and the A button is bouncing up and down, which is nice. So what I'm going to do for the A button is slow it down a little bit because it's a little bit too fast for my liking. But you can also see we have an actor here, so we're going to start scripting to make the scene look a little cleaner. And we need to get rid of that actor, basically. So we'll go ahead and close this. So we'll go ahead and do animation speed. Just put it at 2. Animation speed for this is fine. So the first thing we're going to do is going to be on Init. One thing I forgot to mention is the scene type doesn't really matter for this game. So just keep in mind it's top-down 2D for now. So first thing we're going to do on Init is hide the actor. So hide the player. I'm going to hide the arrow. So basically, what we need to do next is to import some of the figures that are going to go in these different blocks. So we have those set up in our assets as backgrounds. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Now, to my knowledge, when you use GBVM script, you actually don't need to bring these into the project itself, but I'm just going to do that so you have a visual of what I am talking about. Alright, so what do we have here? We have our 3 items that we were talking about earlier. So we're going to use these numbers for the wins and the card number. So we have that. We have the attack class, which I'll zoom in on a little bit. The attack class icons, air, land, sea, space. And we also have the ranks here. So this is sergeant, sergeant major, warrant officer, captain, and colonel. So we had to do 2 of these for each one because the opponent's card is upside down. So this bottom row is the player's values, and then these are the opponent's because his values are upside down. So for the wins and the card value, like I said, we're going to call in this value here, and this one for the opponent. For the rank, we're going to use these 2, and for the class, we're going to use these 2. So that is all accomplished by using a GBVM script. But before you do that, you have to set all the variables to a certain value. So we'll go ahead and do that now. So what I want to do is basically have the card be blank when it comes up. So each of these is an 8x8 pixel, or an 8x8 pixel box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the variable to 1 more than we have, because that'll just show a black box, which is what I want. And I'm also going to use the names of these images as the variable so I can easily see what I am working with. So we're going to do on init set variable to value. So I like to use global variables for this. It's just easier to keep track of. So the names we have here are opponent class and player class. So we're going to set that variable to 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now I'm just going to keep copying this. Now, player power, opponent power. Okay, that's good. Now that one I'm going to set to 15. Because that's one more than we have here, so that's just going to return a blank for us. Alright. So we're going to do 2 more iterations of this, one for the rank. So for that one we're going to do 6. So we want to do one more. Let's do player and opponent wins to 0. So we want to set that to 0. So I may need to rework these numbers because I believe this first tile is actually referred to as 0. But we will check that once we get the GBVM scripts set up. Copy event. All right, perfect. So that's going to set all of our variables at the very beginning. So what we can do is take a quick second to see our variables. All right. So alright everybody, we had to make a quick change to our variable values here on the side. As I said, the first one is actually 0, so we had to set these respectively to the value that's just after the last icon for each one. So we went ahead and made that change. So now it's time to add some GBVM script on initiate so we can have the cards look blank and set the win value to 0 right at the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Once we do a few of them, we're going to speed up the video a bit. So The specific script that you need is called vm replace tile x y. So what's cool about it though is you can just click this add reference backgrounds, and then you can pick the thing that you need. So we're going to set the winds first, and we're going to use the power, really the player's power since that one's upright, to show 0 right at the beginning. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. That's this image right here. And we can just click here. This is copy to clipboard. We can go ahead and do Control V right there. So it's a little bit confusing, but right here it's expecting the tile which you want to switch out. So in this case, that tile is 18.1, which is shown in the bottom here once you hover it. So 18.1. So we're going to type that in. 18, 1, comma. And then at the end, what you need to add in is var underscore and the variable that you want, which is set right up here. So we're going to do the player wins. So you have to do var underscore player wins. So what that's going to do is it's going to pull this 0 from the image here and put it there. So that's what should happen. So another thing you might notice changed is we took away the underscores for the variables to not get it confused within the script. So let's see if that worked. Alright, so it was a success. You can see now we have a 0 in the player wins area. So we basically need to do this 7 more times to get all these straight. So remember at the beginning, all these are going to be blank. So you're wondering, what are these random shapes? Each individual tile needs to be unique to the scene, or when it goes to pull this script, it will put the image you're calling on and all the tiles that look exactly like that. So each one of these is unique for the scene, and that's how we can reference it. So let's go in and put in all these GBVMs. So we're going to use the same background, but we're going to change a few things. So we're going to change the tile which we want to switch, which is now 5.1. And we want to also switch the variable which is referenced, but at the beginning they're both 0. So we're going to do op. Save. The nice thing about GBStudio is you can constantly test what you're doing. Alright, perfect. So we've got goose eggs in the win column. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these. So remember, this is combat power, attack class, and rank. Alright, so this has been successful. So we have zeros next to the wins, and the cards are blank, so it's pulling a black square from our sheet, so that's good. So next what we want to do, we want to give the appearance that the players are flipping the cards. So we want the actual player to use the A button to complete that. So what we're going to do next is attach scripts to buttons. Alright, so before we get into attaching the script to the button, we're going to do a quick organizational thing in here by doing an event group. So we're actually going to rename this. So we're going to say initial variable set. We're just going to drag all these into this. So what's good about this is you can open it and collapse it as you need it. And we're going to do the same thing with the GBVM scripts because we are going to need that later on. Once we complete this, so do another event group. I should probably rename all these GBVM scripts, but we'll see if we need to. Alright. So we have that. So when the scene starts, all these things are going to happen. There's going to be initial variable set, and there's going to be initial GBVM tile switch. Alright. So that even happens all before the screen pops up, which is awesome. So now we're going to add event, and we're going to do attach script to button, A button. Override the default action. We're going to click that in this case because we just want to make sure this is exactly what happens when we press the button. So when the tiles switch, we don't want the player to see that. So the first thing I'm going to do is do show overlay. It's going to be black. So when I was making General Warfare, it was white, and with the backlit screen, it got kind of too flashy. So black works well. So the next thing we're going to do is to generate, so the whole thing is random. Combat power is random, the rank is random, and the attack class is random. So if you really wanted to emulate a deck of cards, you would somehow keep track of the numbers that were used, but I just wanted it to be random for both players. So what we're going to do is use math functions and generate all random numbers for the variables that we have here. So I'm going to open that so we can see. So we're going to do math function. So what that's doing is you can set variables to different values, or you can set them to random. So min value and max value is shown here. So this gets a little bit confusing, but the numbers we have here, we need to go between 0 and 1 less than that number, because the first tile is 0. So we're not going to do that for the numbers. So you'll see how it works in a minute. So opponent class, that's going to be right here. So we're going to set that between 0 and 3. Okay. So that is just going to assign a random number. So we're just going to go through all of these and set them up. Player power set to random number between. I don't want 0 to pop up. Well, you know what? We could just leave it. We could have 0 pop up. It's no problem. Either way, the numbers match. You must go to war. So we have player power, opponent power, class. Okay, let's do ranks set to random value between 0 and 4 in this case. here. All right. So the one other thing you need to do is called the seed random number generator. So what happens is this makes sure that the random numbers are random each time you go through. So place this to run a response to user input to ensure random numbers change between playthroughs. So the first time I did it, I was getting the same set of random numbers every time I pressed it. So this random number seed generator will make sure that the numbers change between iterations. So what we're going to do now is run it and look at the build log to see if it actually spits out some random numbers for us. So we won't be able to see them, and the symbols are going to turn all weird, but we should be able to see it in the menu here. All right, so we're going to use this view right here. All right. So the overlay showed up. We forgot to hide the overlay, but you can see here all these numbers are different. You can see the numbers are pretty much changing every time we press A, which is good. So right after this, we're going to need to hide the overlay first. But since we want the numbers to pop while the screen's blank, we want to actually take this entire event group and copy it. We want the game to pull the image every time the number is changed. So we're just going to paste this right in here, and this should work. We're going to change the name of this one to just put input, something like that. So it's going to set the random numbers, then this script is going to pull up new icons for each one of these sections, except for wins. Wins we'll go through in a second. So let's see if it works. Alright, so we have our blank screen again. I'll move this up so we can see the numbers, make sure they're changing. Alright, wow. That worked really well, right? So you can see what happened, and this is a little confusing because it's upside down, just to kind of add to the chaos here. But we pulled a number, a rank, and a attack for each one. Same thing with the opponent. His are upside down. So let's see what happens if we just keep. Perfect, right? This is exactly what we want. We want random things to come up each time we press. So I think what I'm going to do though is add a little wait timer to the overlay because it's a little bit too quick. But this seems to be working well. Okay. So I'm going to do insert event before wait. So all that really happens in like an instant, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to do a little wait, 0.2 seconds. All right, now I'm going to use if statements to actually rack up points and get into these wars. So the first thing we want to do is if what we want to do is compare a variable with a variable. If a variable, compare with variable. So the first thing we want to check, this is my priority, is the combat. Do the combat powers match? So does player power equal opponent power? That's what I want to know. If so, we want to say 4. Pretty simple, right? So I'm going to make this kind of sleek. I learned how to do this. This is a newer thing for GBStudio. So I'm going to set up a precedence here. So I first wanted to check if there's a war. So in my game, this switches to a different scene. But in this case, we're just going to stop at these text boxes. So next, what I want to check is if the ranks match. So I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to say rank. This is just going to check if the ranks match next. Rank, player rank. All right. So if that happens, we're going to say, you remember that is a shootout. So there's going to be some kind of different battle in General Warfare. It's either at the shooting range or at the shooting range, or it's like a first-person situation with a bomber or a battleship, or a, what are the other ones? Yeah, like an air fight. So that'll transfer you to that scene. So the other situation I want to set up is, okay. Oh, so I did it wrong already. Common thing. Compare with value. All right, so we want to actually do variable to variable. There we go. So the next we want to check for is the class. And in that case, we want to do a radar strike. Okay. So these are separate scenes in the true game, which we won't go into now. But you probably figure out we're missing something. So if we go into a war here, what we want to do next is compare them again, but we want to say if basically we want to compare the player's value to the opponent's value. So if the player's value is greater, they win. If the variable for the opponent is greater, the opponent wins. So we're going to do that now. All right. So in here, the whole time we've been doing equals. This is where we're actually going to change this to is player's power greater than opponent's power. So we actually need to check this. So if the player's power is greater than the opponent's power, we're going to do battle 1. And the other thing we're going to do is another math function. We're going to do opponent wins, or excuse me, player wins. Add value 1. All right, too easy. Now, if else. So we don't need to do anything else here, because it's just saying if else. So it automatically means that the opponent's power is greater. So what I want it to do is if there's a first check if there's a war, second check if the player's power is greater than the opponent's power. And next, I'm actually going to drag these up into the else, because next I want it to check the rank in the class. Boom. Boom. So if neither one of those is true, we also want to conduct... We want to give the opponent a point. So we want to say the battle is lost. And we also want to do opponent wins. Add value 1. Okay, so just to go through it once again. First, I wanted to check if there's a war. Then I want to check if the player's power is greater than the opponent's power. If it is, the player gets an additional win. The rank and class really only help the player in case he loses. So if the ranks match, he'll go into a mini game, which is a shootout. If the classes match, he'll go into a mini game, which is like the radar strike. If he still misses out, he's going to see battle lost. So this is kind of like another if-then statement in and of itself. So let's test this and see if it works. And we'll also see if our new overlay works. Okay, so let's see what happened here. We have a 2 and a 5, which we lost. And then, for some reason, we have been given a radar strike when things are not matching. So let's see what the numbers are saying here. Class does not match. Player power, 2 and 5. Opponent rank and player rank. Okay. So that means we have a problem with our code. Let's see, radar strike. Oh, see, we did make an error with our code. So if opponent class equals opponent class, that's why a radar strike came up. So we want to change this to, alright, simple fix. Let's see if that does it. Battle 1. So we have a 13, they have a 9. Great. Shootout. So let's see what is happening here. We have another error. Let's see what it is. So this is really the great thing about GBStudio. You can just keep testing it to make sure that it's working. Oh, actually, we're good here. Shootout. The ranks match. We got both kernel and both 1. Alright, good. Let's click back on here. Battle lost. Correct. So I think I'm going to make one tweak is to pull the wins script update out of the button press, because if I want to see the win go up right when they win, but that's a small one right now. Okay, battle lost. Good. So another thing I think I'm going to change is not having to press the A button twice. Shootout. Good. Shootout and rate. Okay, so that is actually correct. Normally I would go to a different screen, so it would take me away before the second one came up. I'm gonna have battle lost. Right, so all 3 of those wouldn't come up at once, because normally I'd change scenes. Battle 1. Okay, good. Alright, I'm gonna make a few of those quick changes. So what I would like to do is let's see, where are the wins? I believe they're here. Player wins. All right, so I'm gonna put those. I'll put those at the bottom here. And then we're going to save. And the other one I said I was going to do is fix the text so I don't have to keep pressing A twice every hand. So I'm going to do that in here. Open, yeah, close when the text is finished. So this is, I believe this is a new feature in GBStudio. Close when text is finished, delay 0.5. Too easy. Battle 1, here, text is finished. Yep. It's your math function. Yep. Let's run it. All right, that's looking good. All right, I think I'm going to fix this just to make it more clear. Lost. Yes, that's correct. Battle lost. So we have a battle lost here. Nothing matches, so that's good. Opponent got a point. So you guys can see the wins are ticking up, which is good. So that's how I like it. Ooh, big smoke. 0 to 14. Okay, we got a war, which is good. So it looks like everything's working here, which is cool. So I think I'm just going to clean up that one thing, and then we will close it out. So just for some background on this, I pretty much learned this on YouTube as well. Robert Doman, he's an awesome guy, does a lot of tutorials, but I learned this. And I just had the idea to do a card game with it. Wasn't sure how I would use it when I first saw it, but started with a card game, and got the military theme. Kind of took the idea and ran with it. So if you want to know a little bit more about how the game was made, there's another video which will be linked at the end of this one to see how the game came about and how I came up with the idea. Alright, so I want to clean up this shootout, radar strike, battle lost. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop each one in the else section, because that will have it checking each one. And if it doesn't meet the criteria, we'll go to the next one. This also needs to go with it. Forget that. Display. So radar strike, like I said, that no math function because that would go to a different screen. Shootout, no math function. Battle 1, add 1, yep. Alright, good. Let's do one more hand and then we'll wrap it up. If you guys want to check out the game, it'll be linked. It's free to play online. And there's a lot of different ways to play as well, so just because you get to the end doesn't mean you played everything. You can pretty much win quickly by winning wars, or you can basically just win every battle up to 14 in each case and beat the generals that way. So there's a couple different ways to play. Alright, good. I'll move this up so we can see the numbers switching here. Okay, we got a war. So, like I said, you can hit a war very quickly and move on if you win. All right, good. Shootout. So so it's good. We lost, but we both have sergeant's rank. So we go to the shootout. Battle 1, 11-3. 2. Okay, you got us on that one. Goose eggs. Nice. Alright, this seems to be working well. Alright, there's one more thing we got to do, actually. And that's going to be... I'm going to use this A button to do an on-update script. So on-update, as you guys know, that runs every frame, pretty much. So what I want it to do is when we hit 14 wins for either player, that's going to end the game. Actually, you know what? For the sake of this, we're going to do 5. Just to show a variable compare with value. This is going to be wins. This is going to be up. I'm going to do, just so we can see, so we can give an indication that it works. I'm going to do this. I'm all about copy and pasting in GBStudio. Definitely speeds things up. Let's do this. No. Let's do that after. Let's do Bob wins. So, yeah, we need to fix this. Player. So on the on-update script, you guys know, it's constantly checking to see if this is met. Cool. It's constantly checking to see if the criteria is met, so this will keep track of the wins for each one, and then it would off-ramp basically to another scene, or set you up. In the case of the actual game, it would bring you back to the general's room so you can go to the next one. Yep. All right, there we go. So our on update worked. And looks like everything else is working, so that is good news. So I wanted to do this video, explain a little bit about how I made the card game happen and some of the visuals to it. Like I said, I learned a lot of this on YouTube, so I wanted to share some practical application with an actual game between tile switching, random number generator, and just the ideas and things that came from it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and thanks for watching.